The First Nations student group at the University of Washington is composed of over 50 different tribal and indigenous affiliations. On average, the size of the group consists of about 20 students who are consistently active in First Nations. In a large college where the student population numbers about 35,000, there are about 100 indigenous students, according to the university's own statistical records.
These things will happen, so just be willing to be flexible.
Well, there's a lot of things that contribute to that.
Casey almost really sounded upset for a second.
A lot of people. It would have been good to have more drums, but there's good drums here.
This small but dedicated group of Native students works very hard every year to provide 2 powwows for the university and community at large. The first one is the UW Winter Powwow, held by the American Indian Student Commission. The second is a Spring Powwow, entirely run by the First Nations group. Many people are not aware of the time, effort, commitment, and energy it takes to put on one of the largest powwows in the United States. The UW Athletic Department denied First Nations the use of the Heket Pavilion for reasons associated with the new renovation. Believing that these concerns were not valid, First Nations asked the Associated Student Senate of the University of Washington for support through passing a resolution.
As far as I know, the First Nations Committee has had its powwow at the Heket for decades now. Since Heket was closed for renovations last year, the powwow was held at Sandpoint Naval Base instead. The location is inadequate, below the operating capacity of the group, and being off campus, inconvenient. Although there are no other conflicting events, and although money was not an issue in the decision, the athletic department has turned down First Nations in its attempts to reserve the space. Barbara Hedges, UW Athletic Director, cited a number of reasons for turning down First Nations. Hedges told the group the wood floor of the basketball court is of a high premium and cannot be damaged. The Graduate and Professional Student Senate also passed a resolution supporting First Nations at its meeting earlier this week.
For over 35 years, First Nations has provided a nationally recognized powwow. This time, only 2 weeks before the powwow, First Nations was told that the Office of Minority Affairs would not support the powwow this year and was asked to downsize the event to 1 day, or better yet, not at all. This occurred during spring break when no one in First Nations was notified, and most of them were on break.
discussion among our staff in terms of how we work with each other. And you all have incredible burdens beyond, you know, being leaders in terms of you being students. Many of you also work, and you know, and we're the ones who should also be helping you. You know, had I been there, it would have been presented very differently. It would have been, here is the situation. We have X amount of dollars. We do have enough dollars for one day. What do we do? How do we solve this problem? And I think that's where you would have had a chance to talk about the funding in terms of when you are notified, etc. Clearly that kind of a discussion didn't happen for whatever reason. I wasn't there and I'm not going to judge you. But I think that there is a way in terms of how we work with each other. And it is really about respect and how we respect each other. And because none of this should have happened. This should be a glorious time. It always is. And instead, we made it more difficult for you than it needed to be. And so when the trust is broken, then it's really hard to get back to that place. Because I know that was one of the original intents of the Powwow, was to bring, you know, students to the campus. And we moved away a little bit from that because of the intensity and the breadth of responsibilities. And if I'm misspeaking, you know, please correct me. Yeah. But I don't want to determine those. You all decide. Maybe help us decide what that is.
This has been really hard, and you know, you guys always talk about like you're afraid of our studies and stuff getting in the way of, you know, when we put on our powwow. But I mean, there's things that happen that shouldn't have happened at all. We were told to hold off on our advertisement.
And I did
we were told all these things and not knowing why until Jim told us that we probably wouldn't be able to have our powwow this year. I mean, if anything's a burden, I mean, that was the biggest burden that we faced this year. And, you know, the Office of Minority Affairs, you guys should be our #1 supporters. You guys shouldn't be standing in our way. Keep it still.
Well, and that was one of the things I did not know until that afternoon that had happened, where they told you not to send out your posters, I believe it was, and stop it. And I know, unless I said it wrong, I said, are the students involved in this? Do the students know what's going on? And then they said they were meeting with it Friday. What I did not know is that no other meeting had taken place until Jim told me when I called him to ask him for clarification. So Mona, I don't know how I can ever apologize to you, because I think we did make this incredibly difficult, and it didn't have to happen this way. And for that, I think Emil and Enrique can both say that I was incredibly disappointed, if not angry. I'll just be very honest with you. And I'm angry at myself for not being engaged right on that day and calling Jim that very day versus waiting for that meeting to take place. And that is what I should have done. I really do hope that this is the beginning of a new path. I'm looking forward to still going to the Powwow. I hope you still want me there, because I really would like to go. But quite frankly, I think a public apology needs to be made at the Powwow about this. And I'm willing to do that if you all would like me to. If not, I understand.